Good Monday afternoon to you. Hope your week is off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Indians are in Detroit. They'll start a 4-game series. Indians beat reporter for Indians.com as well as MLB.com, Mandy Bell, will be along a little bit later in the show to talk Tribe. We begin by talking Browns football. Browns getting ready in the middle, really, of OTAs. And Tom Pelissero from NFL.com tweeted this out. Some of the 22 of the 32 teams are kind of revamping and modifying plans for OTAs starting this week after discussions between players and coaches. And some of the veterans are staying away, but after weeks of boycott talk statements, many of those veterans are showing up. When we talk Browns football, we like to welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Mary Kay, what can you tell us about the Browns and the potential for having in-person OTAs with Cleveland Browns?
Well, within a story that I just posted a little while ago with Andrew Billings, an exclusive interview with Andrew Billings, he talks a little bit about what's going on with the Cleveland Browns in terms of the decision-making process for these OTAs. First of all, he said the players have decided they're going to kind of close ranks and keep it in-house, and they're trying not to say too much about what they're doing. But they are sticking together as a team. He said that is the key, is that coaches and players are presenting a united front in this as best as they can, and they're really trying to come up with something that works for everyone. So I think what's happening right now is they're working through some things, and this is phase 3 of the offseason program that starts this week. They're going to do, and we know this for a fact, they're going to do some limited field work this week. What they'll try to then do is, after this week, have some OTAs. Now, they're voluntary, but over the next 2 weeks, have some voluntary OTAs, some practices that are a little bit more comprehensive than what will be going on this week. And we're not sure who will show up yet or who will not, but I think it will be more than what the Browns originally intended to do.
How important are the OTAs? And if the Browns don't have as many people in as the other teams, like you hear Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to have 81 people, or, I'm pulling a number out of thin air, but they're going to have almost a full team. Does that put the Browns behind it all, or do they not view it that way?
Well, they're not viewing it that way. And, they went 11-5 last season and made it to the AFC divisional playoffs with a virtual offseason. And the NFLPA and JC Treader are trying to, remind the players that they stayed healthier, that they stayed safer amid the pandemic with a virtual offseason. However, if all of these other teams are practicing in OTAs, then I do think it puts the Browns behind. And that's just sort of the reality of the situation. Now, they're doing virtual meetings and they're doing virtual walkthroughs and practices or whatever they can do right now. But I still think when you have all these other teams that have almost a full turnout, last week there were 10 teams that had basically a full turnout, including the Chiefs. And I do think that it puts the Browns a little bit behind. Yeah,
you don't want to put yourself at a competitive disadvantage. Absolutely. Tell us more about, I'm intrigued. Tell us more about Andrew Billings, the interview you had and the story that you've posted. People can go to cleveland.com and read that. So want to promote that. But tell us about the Andrew Billings story.
I was really fortunate to have a nice conversation with Andrew Billings, the defensive tackle from the Bengals, who opted out last season for the Browns because of COVID-19. He has asthma, and he just felt that there was no way he could play the season with the threat of COVID-19 looming over him. So I had an opportunity to talk to him last week for a while on the phone. It was a really nice interview. Fans are going to like Andrew Billings. He's a really cool guy. But he talked about how when he watched Myles Garrett out there struggling after COVID-19, the after effects, it really confirmed for him that he made the right decision in opting out, even though it was very difficult. Now, at the time when he watched Myles Garrett struggling over there on the sidelines last season after he came back, he didn't even know that he had asthma. Andrew Billings did not know that Myles Garrett had asthma. He just could see him struggling and thought, boy, I don't know if I would have been able to handle that as well as Myles did. Later, he comes to find out that he was also an asthmatic, and that kind of shed new light on the whole thing for him.
And it's important to note, Andrew Billings is a guy they were excited to sign. That's a run-stuffing defensive tackle who the Browns expect big things from.
Oh, absolutely. He would have been a big part of that defensive tackle rotation last year. Now, he signed a 1-year prove-it deal worth $3.5 million. He was slated to be a big part of the rotation, and who knows, he may have even beat out Julio Jones in training camp for the actual starting job, because he was graded higher the previous year by certain sites like Pro Football Focus, just in terms of what he was able to accomplish with the Bengals. So, yeah, it was kind of a blow to lose him. And now that he's back, as you know, he's joining a very crowded defensive tackle room. There are a lot of guys in there that, that want to be part of this rotation. And it's going to be a tremendous competition amongst all of them.
Well, CBS Sports ranked the defenses in the NFL. And listen to this. Washington was first. Washington football team. Tampa Bay second. Cleveland Browns third. If the Browns have the third best defense in the NFL, there's a lot of good things that are going to happen for the Cleveland Browns this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's really saying a lot to put them right up there like that when you have other really good defenses out there. Of course, like the Rams is another really good unit. And then, you've got Nick Bosa coming back to another great defense of the San Francisco 49ers. The Ravens have a good defense. So, yeah, I think that third is really, that's great if people are viewing the Browns defense as a top 5 defense. If it is such, I really do think that they'll go deeper into the playoffs.
Now, the other thing is they have Baltimore 4 and Pittsburgh 5. So that speaks to how well thought of the defenses in the Browns division are. Here's another thing I know you've addressed. Do you think this defense, with potentially as many as 9 new starters, will gel by week 1?
Yeah, it's tough to say. That is one reason why I do think, that it will be helpful for them to at least have the mandatory mini camp, which there was some thought or talk that maybe they would try to eliminate the mandatory mini camp, the union. But at this point, it seems like that's going to be a go. That's June 15th through the 17th. So they're going to have to really be efficient and work very, very hard in getting out on the field and trying to get some chemistry down and some timing down. Other than that, it's going to be a lot of mental reps for these guys so that they are ready to get it together for the preseason. Now, one thing they should have this year that they didn't have last year are preseason games. So they will have some of those games to kind of pull the whole unit together.
When you look at this defense and what they've added, what characteristics, what traits do you think the Browns have upgraded in the defense that will be the 2021 Browns?
Well, a couple of the things are the fact that they will be a lot faster at linebacker with JOK. So I think that's one of the things. And Anthony Walker, too, signed from the Colts. He's also so much faster than what they had at linebacker. That's going to help them in terms of trying to chase down some of these running quarterbacks, some of these running backs, tight ends over the middle. So they've shored up the middle of the defense there from a speed standpoint and from sideline to sideline range and all of that. That's good. And then when you look up on the defensive line, they've added some versatility in terms of where they can play some of these guys. Malik Jackson not only can start inside for them, but he can also start on the outside at defensive end, which enables you then to sometimes move Jadeveon Clowney or someone else onto the inside. And there's just a whole lot of versatility going on up there. You're never really going to know exactly who is doing what on any given down. And that's going to be good in terms of what the quarterback is trying to ID when he looks out there.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for The Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we're going to flip sides of the football a little bit. CBS Sports ranks the offenses. We'll tell you where the Browns are. PFF has also graded some offensive linemen. Browns have a couple in the top 10. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football with Mary Kay Cabot, Plain Dealer, and cleveland.com Browns beat reporter. CBS Sports, Mary Kay has ranked the top offenses. They did it by tiers. So tier one only has 3 of them in it. It is the Chiefs, Buccaneers, and Packers 1, 2, and 3. Tier 2 is where the Browns are. That has a number of teams. It goes Cowboys 4th, Rams 5th, Bills 6th, Browns 7th, Ravens 8th. And when you look at the Steelers and Bengals, they are both in Tier 4. It certainly sounds like the elite of the elite quarterbacks are in that top tier. And then the guys in that second tier with the Browns have quarterbacks that are young and trying to get into that elite status.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's about right at this point. I think that Baker Mayfield needs to sort of establish that he is up there in that elite tier. And when we're talking about elite, I think we're referring to the Patrick Mahomes, the Aaron Rodgers, the Tom Brady's, and that group. I think it's respectable to be in the second tier. And if he plays like he did in the second half of last season over the long haul of a whole season, I think he can climb up into that top tier. And of course, that's what the Browns are hoping he will do. But, you know, he's got to show it over time.
Any doubt in your mind, just based on what you've seen and the fact that this is his second year, first time that, and it's hard to believe that he's going to be in an offense for the second year with most of the starters back. How much does that familiarity help?
Oh, it's tremendous. I mean, for him to be able to, like you said, come back into the same offense for the second year in a row for the first time in his career, but have all of his guys back around him, I think that it will just enable them to hit the ground running. And they will have to hit the ground running, considering that they are opening in Kansas City against the Chiefs. I mean, you really want to get out to a great start when that is who you are opening against. So, you know, it's not like last year when they went into Baltimore and they had never played together in this new offense. And the coaches didn't really know them. They didn't really know the coaches. Now these guys know how to call a game for Baker Mayfield. They know each other. I mean, Austin Hooper knows what to do with Baker Mayfield, and so on and so on. So I think it is going to be a tremendously huge factor.
This is another question I think you've answered, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do they expect Baker Mayfield to have Odell Beckham Jr. back week 1, or is that being a little too optimistic?
No, I think he should be back for week 1. Now, torn ACLs, guys come back from those in 9-10 months, and that puts Odell Beckham Jr. right on pace. Now, does it necessarily mean he'll have to play every single snap of the opener? Maybe not. but I think he will be ready to go. I think you'll see him out there. I think that the Chiefs will have to game plan for him. And from what he looks like on social media, I think it'll give them plenty to think about.
Fair to say that it's a big year for Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr. trying to find that chemistry?
I think so, but I've said this many times before. I think those guys would have done just fine in the second half of last season. I think part of the problem was they really weren't calling the game for Baker the way they started to in the second half. Once they just kind of looked at everything at the bye week and figured out, let's do some more play action. Let's do some more keepers and bootlegs and rollouts and those kinds of things. Once they knew exactly what his strengths were and how to play to them, that's when he lit it up. And I think that Odell Beckham Jr. would have benefited from that.
So Pro Football Focus, the analytics-driven website, has come out with the rankings of the top 10 guards in the NFL. Quentin Nelson from the Colts is ranked number 1. Zach Martin ranked number 2. Joe Thuney, now with the Chiefs, formerly Patriots, is 3. Joel Bitonio is 4. And Wyatt Teller is 9. I know Pro Football Focus, analytics-driven. I think the rankings for offensive linemen are even more important just because they sit down and look at, the play from the perspective of the guards, of the guards and the linemen, whereas the average guy just says, well, yeah, it looks like he's blocking good.
Yeah, I mean, they really put a lot of time and effort into this, and they use a lot of different criteria. And, yeah, I think that's about right. I mean, Wyatt Teller, I think, finished the 2020 season as their number 1 rated guard. And I thought that was a little high considering that his pass blocking left a little bit to be desired and that he was going to need to pick that up a little bit. His run blocking, of course, was terrific. So I think this is about right for him. And it's nice to see Joel way up there where he belongs because I do think that he is one of the best guards in the NFL. I think he's underrated. And I think it's nice to see him getting his just dues.
What do you think about the Browns' offensive line? How impressed were you with what they did a year ago?
Well, it was great that they were able to come together the way that they did, considering, once again, that they had to do it all virtually. They had a brand new offensive line coach in Bill Callahan. They had to learn all new line calls and different ways of doing things. And I think it's a testament to some of the really smart and savvy veterans that they have on the line, like Joel Bitonio, like a Jack Conklin, who was also new, and they did a phenomenal job, like a J.C. Treader. Now, Jed Wills, he was a rookie. They got him ready to start at left tackle, making that switch from right tackle in college. So all of those things came together very, very well. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they have one of the best offensive line coaches in the entire country on their staff, and it showed.
Given that, what do you expect Jedrick Wills to be his second year at left tackle and his second year with Bill Callahan?
Well, he got some of the growing pains out of the way. I mean, it takes a while to get that muscle memory to move over to the other side and just have a new way of thinking over there. They did a tremendous job with him, and he had a very, very good rookie season. But he does also have to pick it up a notch. When you look at the PFF rankings for him as a rookie, he finished as the 79th best tackle. They're going to want that number to come up into the top 20 this year. That's what you want from your number 10 overall pick. But I think it can happen. Once again, he had to learn all of this virtually, especially a whole new side. And I think you'll see a better Jed in year 2.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll hear from Colin Cowherd talking Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson. Also, the Bleacher Report has ranked the landing places for Julio Jones. Falcons likely to trade him. Could the Browns be in the offing? We'll see. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football. And those of you who watch Sports4CLE regularly know I refer to Colin Cowherd as Crazy Uncle Colin because he's just going to say some things to get a reaction. Take a listen to the fifth-year extension talk for Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson.
It's interesting the word he used. Let's play the bite.
You know, I'd like to say that it was a proactive statement, but it really just worked out that way. We obviously felt comfortable with Baker, have felt comfortable with Baker for a long period of time.
Comfortable? Somebody asked my wife, how's your marriage? Oh, I'm comfortable. Kind of sounds like it's cool for now. It was fine. I'm comfortable. Maybe I'm making too much of it, but comfortable is, yeah, we'll pick up his fifth-year option. Now, it should be noted, Baker is 6-14 against winning teams. Winning teams are hard to beat. Nobody goes undefeated against winning teams. But he is 14-4 as a pro when he's been asked to throw it 30 or fewer times, and 10-18 when he's asked to throw it over 30 times. They're a better football team when he is reined in a little. But it is interesting to listen to the general managers in Baker's division talk about their quarterbacks. This is the Ravens general manager here.
The guy that's going to be here. We love him. He's really the face of this team right now in many different ways. He's the leader. He's a good player. And he's our quarterback. So we will work tirelessly to get a deal done.
Love him. Work tirelessly. What do you think about Baker? We're comfortable. Pick up his fifth-year option.
He's making a little too much out of that. Let's welcome back in Mary Kay Cabot. Mary Kay, the other thing I would say is when you throw 30 times or more in a football game, you've usually fallen behind early, and that's why you throw so many times. But I get where he's going. The other thing is Andrew Berry just isn't going to sit there and lavish praise on somebody. Different personality styles between GMs as well is the reason for that.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. It is not like Andrew Berry to negotiate through the media at all. And it is also not really like him to kind of show his hand about what he's going to do. So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that whatsoever. The truth of the matter is that all three of these teams, the Bills, the Ravens, and the Browns, are going to try to wrap up those quarterbacks from the class of 2018 and sign them to their extensions at some point. It'll either happen this offseason, or it will happen at some point during the season, or it could happen after the season. And I think they have all tried to indicate in their own way that these are their quarterbacks of the future and that they will get those things done. People are reading too much into what Andrew is saying either way. I mean, that Ross Tucker quote that he gave on the podcast was basically what he has said to us each of the last 10 times that we've asked him. And that is, we like Baker. We think the arrow is pointing up for him, and every situation is different, and we'll figure out what we're going to do as far as the extension is concerned.
Just a gut feeling. Who do you think gets extended first? Do you think it's Nick Chubb, in part because there is no fifth-year option? Wyatt Teller, same deal? Or do you think they get the Baker deal done? And again, it could be a matter of if you wait on Baker, you're going to have to match Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen if those get done first.
I don't know exactly what their strategy is. That is by design. They are trying to make sure that that they play that really close to the vest, and they're not going to let people know exactly what they're doing or how they're doing it. But what we do know is that these are all guys that they want back, and it's just a matter of when. It's really not a matter of if. And in terms of like a Nick Chubb and a Wyatt Teller, it's a different situation, obviously, because they don't have the fifth-year options. So they will try to I'm sure they'll try to get those guys done this offseason if they possibly can. But I don't think the order is necessarily going to make or break them. It's just a matter of how they want to set this all up. The order might come because one guy accepts your offer and another guy wants to wait a little bit and keep working things out. So I don't think that, that we know exactly what the plan is yet in terms of who will get done first.
So a lot's being made about Julio Jones in the news that he's likely to be traded. There was a national report today where he kind of indicated that he thought he would be out of Atlanta. Bleacher Report has which NFL teams should push to get Julio Jones. They have the Ravens, the Packers, the Patriots, the Titans, and the Browns on that list. Any way that you think the Browns try to trade for Julio Jones, and there's some talk it may only take a second-round pick to get him at this point.
Well, from a salary structure standpoint, they're not going to have three guys on the team that make that much money. I mean, that's really just that wouldn't make sense for them. They already have two guys in that salary stratosphere at receiver in Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. So unless they're talking about a swap of Odell and Julio, I don't know where they're really going with that, because the Browns are not going to break the bank like that on another receiver.
Fair enough. So Jeremy Fowler tweeted this, and it's kind of interesting. So that the David Njoku and the Browns are now in a good place. He requested a trade last summer. He said sources close to Njoku have told him he is in a good place with the franchise. Have you heard similar things? Does that surprise you at all?
Well, no, because David Njoku has said it himself, so you don't need sources to tell you this. It's all you have to do is look at David Njoku's Twitter to see that he has basically said, again, I'm all in. Let's ride, Cleveland. No distractions. And the Browns have always felt like, that he was a part of their team and that they wanted him back. So for him to kind of put that aside and say that he's all in, that's all anybody needs to know. We don't need anonymous sources to tell us that when we can get it straight from the horse's mouth.
Important to note, that was when the Browns drafted him, he was a young guy, had only played a couple of years, a year or two at Miami. So he's one of the guys that would fit that profile, a younger guy that would get potentially a second contract from the Browns.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work out. It depends on how this season plays out. He's under contract this year under his fifth-year option tender of $6 million guaranteed. So they'll have to see how it goes. I mean, he only caught 19 of 29 targets last year and had 2 touchdown catches. I think he's very much capable of a lot more than that. But it's a crowded field in Cleveland in terms of the pass catchers, the tight ends, the receivers, and running backs who can catch the ball. So if he's only going to have in the 20s, then you don't need a guy like that that costs that much money. And therefore, with the new salaries that are going to have to be paid over the next couple of years, then I think you let him walk. But if he's going to be a guy that catches 6, 7, 8 touchdowns for you, then you start to think about extending him.
Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com, Mary Kay Cabot, and I going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, Bleacher Report has ranked the biggest home run hitters in the NFL. Browns have one of them. We'll also talk how 2021 will be different from 2019. Sports4CLE will continue talking Browns after this timeout. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. The Bleacher Report has given out a list of the top 10 home run hitters in the NFL. Those are guys that can score on any given play when they touch the football. Number 1 in the NFL, Derrick Henry. Number 2, Tyreek Hill of the Kansas City Chiefs. DK Metcalf was 3. And the Browns' Nick Chubb was in the top 10 at number 9. And Mary Kay, the more I think about it, the more sense it makes, because you see him ripping off 85, 90-yard touchdown runs pretty regularly.
Yeah, he is a home run hitter. I mean, that is the thing about Nick Chubb, and also one of the reasons why they will talk about extending him, even though analytics people don't usually like to give running backs a ton of money in their second contracts. Nick Chubb is different. He transcends the position in some ways. He's one of the best in the NFL, and his ability to break those long runs is the reason why. So he's something special, and I think he belongs right there.
It's kind of interesting, too, because when you think of Nick Chubb, he's a bigger guy that, will break tackles. He gets the 4- and 5-yard runs. And then when he gets in the open field, he has the speed that is, it's kind of surprising that a big guy can run like he can.
Yeah, he's got that afterburner speed, and it's pretty amazing that he seems to get stronger as the run goes along, or sometimes even as the game goes along. So he's pretty remarkable in that way. Cleveland is lucky to have him. He's been so fun to watch, and I know that Browns fans absolutely love him. And once again, you have to account for him on every single play with that breakaway speed.
Now, I know you've heard this one before, so let's go through this. A lot of the cynical fans, if you will, are kind of comparing this offseason, where a lot of it expected of the Browns, to 2019 when Freddie Kitchens was there and a lot was expected of the Browns, and we know how they had ended up. So what is different in your mind, and you're as close to the team as anyone in the media, from 2019 to 2021? What's the biggest difference, or the biggest differences?
Well, you have to start with the coaching staff. Freddie Kitchens was handed a roster with a lot of talent on it. There were many of the same players that they have right now. Some of their best and brightest players were on that football team. And it was just a very disorganized coaching staff without clear-cut schemes, especially offensively. They didn't really have a plan for Baker Mayfield. They didn't really have a plan offensively. And going into each game, they just didn't really have a great game plan either. And then calling it on Sundays was kind of a disaster. From everything that I've heard, and I've talked to people behind the scenes, it just wasn't how you run an offense or how you run a football team. And that's all changed under Kevin Stefanski. He's meticulous. He is organized almost to a fault, if that's even possible. But these guys know what's expected of them. They know when it is expected of them. And it is taught and articulated so clearly that everyone knows where they need to be and when they need to be there. And that is the difference. And they're playing to Baker Mayfield's strengths. There are just no questions about what everybody's supposed to be doing. So it really comes down to the coaching staff. Having said that, that was a much more difficult schedule in 2019, and it was a pretty easy schedule last year in 2020 from the standpoint of just strength of schedule. It was really the fourth easiest in the NFL. I think they have tougher opponents this year, although I saw Warren Sharp of Sharp Football. He ranked the Browns' schedule as the third easiest in the NFL. I find that hard to believe when you have to go against some of the guys, some of the quarterbacks that they have to face. I don't see how they came up with that. From a win-loss standpoint, it's ninth toughest. We'll see how it works out.
The other thing is it lays out pretty favorably for the Browns. I know if you had a different opening game from Kansas City, you'd probably take it, but it isn't like they have a bunch of really difficult games stacked one on top of each other. They seem to be spread out. The games you would expect to be the toughest are spread out a little bit.
Yeah, they are spread out a little bit. I think it's going to get tough down the stretch when you have to play Baltimore in those back-to-back weeks. Of course, they have a bye week in between there while Baltimore is in Pittsburgh that week, so it's way tougher for them. But I still think that there is that stretch where you really face a bunch of your AFC North foes in that last part of the season, and it does get a little difficult, but still not as bad as it is for the Ravens.
The other thing that seems different, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like the points that Kevin Stefanski is stressing very different from what was going on in 2019. He's stressing work. That seems to be every time he talks about it, we'll work and get to work and see how it turns out.
Well, he has a handle on the team. He's got a handle on the players. He's got a handle on quieting the noise. If you remember, you had Freddie Kitchens wearing a Pittsburgh Started It T-shirt. You just can't have something like that going on your football team. And I think that sort of captured the essence of what was going on that team in 2019. You would never find Kevin Stefanski doing something like that. He's very mature. He's a grown-up about this whole situation. And even though he's young, he was able to parlay this into AP NFL Coach of the Year, and that really is saying something.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for The Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. As always, Mary Kay, appreciate the time and the insight. Remember, wrote that exclusive interview with Andrew Billings. You can find that on cleveland.com. Mary Kay, appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for The Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We're going to shift focus a little bit. On the other side of the break, Mandy Bell, Indians beat reporter for Indians.com, as well as MLB.com, will join us. We'll talk some Indians baseball, talking about Tristan McKenzie, the 4th and 5th starters, Owen Miller. How do the Indians replace Franmil Reyes? That's straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We're going to shift our focus and talk Indians baseball. Tribe in Detroit to start a 4-game series against the Tigers tonight. And when they take the field, they'll only be a game and a half behind the Chicago White Sox for first place in the American League Central. Let's welcome in Mandy Bell. Mandy is the beat reporter for Indians.com as well as Indians beat reporter for MLB.com. Mandy, thanks so much for the time. Injury to Franmil Reyes. How do the Indians work around that? How do you get the offense to continue producing without the big guy in the middle of that lineup?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, even whenever he was in the middle of that lineup, the offense wasn't consistent, and he wasn't really consistent either. But whenever he did get called, you always knew that at any second he could just flip a switch and be scorching hot. And so to not have that possibility there, to not have that threat there still in the middle of the order is going to be difficult for them to overcome. And I think that a lot of that's going to fall squarely on Eddie Rosario, who's really gotten off to a slow start, Josh Naylor, Cesar Hernandez, all of these guys. It's going to be a collective effort to sort of just fill the void that Reyes is going to be leaving for at least 5 to 7 weeks. So that's a really, really, really tough loss for them. But I think that it's going to require a collective effort for them to be able to make it up. Yeah,
Rosario's a guy that, that's a guy that has a track record and a history of being a successful major league hitter. And as you said, he's gotten off to a slow start. They need him to hit like the Eddie Rosario that was hitting against him at Progressive Field all those years as well. And he just seems to be, he's kind of searching, kind of like I am. He's searching at the plate for something.
Yeah, he is. And I think he just said it the other day. I mean, he's getting really frustrated with the process, and he understands that he has very high expectations. The Indians went out this offseason to have him be the big bat signing of the winter, and it's not really translated so far this year, and he's had a difficult time with it. And he's said 1,000 times that he just wants to find ways to make sure that this team is winning, and he's not been able to really play a huge role in that so far. So that frustration is building with him, and Tito said it multiple times already this year. He just said it again today. We need to figure out ways to get Eddie going. We really need him to get going. And that's going to be the big factor for them. If he can get going, this offense is in a lot better spot than what it is right now, obviously. But if he continues to skid like this, it's going to be difficult for them to really have anything consistent.
Fair enough. Now, the injury to Franmil Reyes did provide an opportunity. Owen Miller was hitting at 500 a little bit of the year in AAA, and then ended up hitting above 400 for the first couple of weeks. Take a listen to Terry Francona talking about Owen Miller, and Owen Miller about the opportunity here with the Indians.
Spring training is so hard, man. I mean, you've heard me say it, and we've talked about it. But watching him hit, is like he just knows how to hit. He a little bit of a throwback. He uses the whole field. He stays inside the ball. He just has a knack for knowing how to hit. It's going to be really fun to watch. Again, I hope he gets off to a great start. But however he does, he's going to be a good hitter.
Just kind of goes into the work that I did in the offseason. And I mean, last year at the alternate site, I made a number of adjustments at the plate, just to help me try to impact the baseball harder and be a more complete hitter and stuff like that. And a lot of things that I worked on, I definitely saw play out in spring training, and I had success with it. And I kind of just carried that over to the alternate site or exhibition games we had in April. And then that carried over into the start of the AAA season. So it's just trying to be as consistent as possible. And, I know that I'll always try to, give the best at-bats possible and fight up there at the plate. And I hope that, my bat can help this team win games.
We'll see. I mean, there could be a situation where we're able to get like Hosey a day to DH or Cesar or something like that, keep guys' bats in the lineup. But I don't want to heap too much on this kid either. I mean, when you first come to the major leagues, the game is so much faster, and I want to let him adjust to that too without putting too much on him.
And again, Owen Miller is a guy that has played second and third. Those are his main positions. He's played shortstop and first this year in opportunity to present an opportunity to play at the majors. They even played him a game in the outfield. So, Mandy, the question of versatility was there, but I think Terry Francona wants him to feel comfortable before you start getting crazy about finding places for him to play in the field.
Absolutely. And then I think that's why it's a good place to start at third base, where one of the two spots where he feels most comfortable tonight. I know that they definitely want to find ways to get Jose Ramirez a day off, but you can't afford to not have that bat in the lineup. So this really opened up that opportunity for them to have that. And so for him to start at third base tonight, I think that allowed him to just feel way more comfortable. I think there's a lot of pressure regardless whenever you come up to make your debut, especially whenever so many fans have been asking for you to come up, and they all have been so excited for this. And then to sort of just start it as a DH, to me, that seems like it would even be more pressuring because you're not able to contribute on the field. You're not able to do other things. And so all of your pressure is going to go into those 3 or 4 plate appearances that you get. And you're going to think, oh my goodness, I need to do everything that I have in these few minutes that I have in this game. So I think that this could actually help take some pressure off of him, get him into a position where he feels most comfortable. And hopefully for him, he'll be able to settle in a little bit more tonight.
Yeah, and you're thinking constantly about your at-bats when you're DHing as well. You're not able to, focus on playing defense when you need to. Well, another thing that happened over the weekend, Tristan McKenzie, a rough outing. So Indians sent him back to AAA. So that makes the 4th and 5th starters now that started the year have been sent down. This is not really a huge surprise. It's not the way you draw it up, but these are young guys that had, in some instances, skipped levels. So they just got to go back down and do the things they were doing in spring training and get back to what made them successful.
Absolutely. Logan Allen has to figure out exactly what was making him so successful in spring training, because that was a show. That was fun to watch. He was incredible during spring training, and I know it's a limited sample size, but he proved that he has it in there. He just has to figure out how to get back to that. And Tristan McKenzie, I think this was expected. I know that he came up and he wowed everybody in 2020, and that was incredible that he did that, because it had been 2 full calendar years since he had last pitched in any type of game setting at any level because of injuries. And then he completely skipped AAA. He had never gotten any innings in AAA, and then somehow comes up to the majors and just thrived. And so the expectations were really high, but I think everyone knew that he is human. He's very young. He's going to hit some obstacles like this. And it seemed like it started to turn maybe more mental than anything else, because he even admitted it was hard to keep the positive mindset. It was hard for him as soon as he would walk a guy to not think, oh no, like let's not keep having more come. Let's not have the domino effect start. And whenever you're on the mound and that's your mindset, that's difficult to get your confidence back. So I think that this could be a really good refresh for him, and just go down there, remember that he does have the stuff that can be dominant, that he can get his command back, get his confidence back, and then come back up to the big leagues.
How much of an advantage does the Indians bullpen give them with those 4th and 5th starters? Because it's not like you're looking for them to go out and throw 6-7 innings. If they get you through 5, you're built to be successful and close the game out pretty strong.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as they can get through 5, and even if they get through 6, it's even better, because and then once you get to that 7th, 8th, and 9th, it's Shaw, Karinchak, Clase, whatever order they want to put them in, and it's just been lights out. I know that Karinchak ran into a rough one yesterday, but he can't be perfect forever, and he hadn't been perfect basically all season long. And so I don't see that changing. I don't see this being at the start of something bad to come for Karinchak. I think that this is just something that, all right, a little blip on the radar and he'll get right back to it. And that trio's just been really, really fun to watch. And so it's been difficult, because there's been times where the bullpen will go days, like at the beginning of the season when the starting rotation was getting so deep into games, at least the top 3 guys in that rotation. And there would be days and stringing together that the bullpen wouldn't get much work. And now it seems like the bullpen's overtaxed once again. And so they go through those little spurts back and forth of where the bullpen sets up a little bit, and maybe Hench's going an extra few innings tonight wouldn't be the worst thing after the weekend they had. But the bullpen's been the reason that the Indians are still in the position that they are today.
Mandy Bell, Indians beat reporter for Indians.com as well as MLB.com, and I are going to take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about Shane Bieber. We'll also dive a little deeper into that bullpen that's been so good. Indians just a game and a half out of the American League Central lead as they start play tonight in Detroit against the Tigers. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Indians baseball. Over the weekend, Shane Bieber, another little bit of a bump in the road. It's hard to say it's a bump in the road. He gave up 3 earned runs in 5 1/3. Not what we've come to expect from Shane Bieber. Indians came back and got the win, which he said was important. Bieber admits still trying to get back to that dominant way that he had earlier in the season.
Yeah, potentially. I think teams are trying to, lay off the off-speed stuff down, which has generally been my strength over the last 2 years. But right now, I think it's a little bit more of a me thing. I'm going through it a little bit, but just to be able to go out there and try and eat up innings, and I feel like I'm getting better and better from outing to outing, especially coming off the last one. There's a lot of positives to look at, so kind of just bag it, keep the momentum moving forward, and take this huge team win, which is a huge momentum boost moving forward. Curveball is a little spotty, not generally used to that. That's kind of been, my right hand, and I had to figure out ways around it. And I feel like there's a couple spots during the game where, generally I'm confident in executing my curveball down and where I wasn't able to. And as frustrating as that is, it's kind of just the game and the way it goes. And I got to be better for it, learn from it.
Let's welcome back in Mandy Bell, Indians beat reporter for Indians.com, as well as MLB.com. And Mandy, it's pretty impressive when a guy who is saying he's struggling finds a way to get through a major league lineup 2-3 times and keeps his team in the game. And that's what Shane Bieber has said the last couple of outings that he's had.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that he's their ace, and it doesn't mean that he has to just have lights out stuff every single time, even though that's what everyone in Cleveland's been spoiled with, it seems like, for the last year. But just to be an ace, you have to grind through. You have to be able to get your team into a spot to win a game, even whenever you don't have your best stuff. And that's what he's had to do for the most part of this last 4 or 5 stretch of starts. And I know that there was one clunker for him in there. That was the shortest outing since 2019, but still, for a stretch that has been very difficult for him, his command's not quite the same, his slider's not the same, his curveball now isn't quite the same. That's difficult for any pitcher. And so for Bieber, when it's his curveball and his slider, his 2 go-to pitches over the last 2 seasons, I mean, that's really hard to work around. And he's been able to figure out as many ways as possible to try to keep those pitches competitive, even though they're not the same shape. The sharpness isn't quite there. And I think he's done it as well as he possibly could have. And I think that each time that he's not quite back yet, it's just more motivation for him and his days in between his starts to figure it out. And that's just the type of pitcher he is. And that's why he's been so successful in his short window in the major leagues. And I don't think that this is going to be a season-long thing. I think he can have a strong second half of the year, but it's just going to be figuring it out in the process.
How much do you think he misses Roberto Perez? And again, Austin Hedges is a really good defensive catcher. He calls a really good game. But I get the feeling that Roberto Perez is almost a security blanket for Shane Bieber and really a couple of the other younger pitchers, just because literally they seem to be on the same wavelength as far as pitch calling and the way you set up hitters. And Roberto Perez may know Shane Bieber better than Shane Bieber does as far as catching him.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I mean, again, like you said, Austin Hedges is a fantastic defensive catcher. That's why that they wanted to spend the money on him over the offseason and make sure that they had him as the backup option if something like this would happen. So it's good that they do have him, but losing Roberto Perez, you hear every single starter say it every single night, how much he means to this rotation, especially a young rotation that still needs some guidance. He's just been perfect. He's a perfect match for this team and these pitchers. And so to lose that, it's difficult. And you look at some of these guys, Bieber, of course, was up a little bit in 2018, but Perez took over the everyday job in 2019. And so you start thinking of most of Bieber's career. Plesac and Savali both came up in 2019. So Roberto Perez has basically been their only catcher, their number one guy. He took a few days off here and there. He had a short IL stint last year, but still, I mean, when you get used to one guy every single day, even if it is another fantastic catcher, it's an adjustment. And so I do think that losing him is a bigger difficulty than maybe most on the outside realize. But I know that they all have just the same amount of trust in Hedges. It's just getting them to be on that same wavelength. And like you sort of said, having him know them just as well as they know themselves, the same way that Roberto Perez clearly does. And
a lot of times a catcher like that can be part catcher, part psychiatrist. He just knows what to say to settle you down. And that's I think Perez has that ability with most of the guys on this staff.
He does, and that's why he said as soon as he did get that injury and decide that he had to get surgery and go on the IL, he wanted to make sure that he could get back in the clubhouse as often as possible. He was like, please, let's figure out the COVID guidelines. Let's figure out what I can do to make sure that I'm around this team. Because he says it all the time. I look at myself as a leader, and he is a leader. And to be able to have him, just his presence there to talk to these guys, especially some of the young ones like Hedges, and you have different young guys coming up, and Sandlin, even if it's the relievers. I mean, just having that veteran presence that knows exactly what you're going through has helped countless guys already go through this type of transition in this short period of time since he's been the everyday catcher. And just knowing what to say and help them getting through it is just so huge that you can't really replace.
Mandy Bell, Indians beat reporter for Indians.com as well as MLB.com. Appreciate the time and the insight. Make sure you read Mandy on MLB.com as well as Indians.com. Mandy, thanks so much for the time. Have a great day. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We are all out of time. We will see you again tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Dan Lobby, scheduled guest. Have a great night, everybody. We will see you tomorrow.